I do want to talk about the piece you wrote about paradox games and its place as like, Josh, what I found interesting about this article is that I think you make a pretty good case in the two substacks that you wrote on this. That basically, mods for games like Hearts of Iron and Crusader Kings represent maybe the only actual cultural output of the new right. And like, I think that's fascinating, like in terms of like post 2016, like we saw the rise and fall of woke. And like, I think what was so, what precipitated its, rather like a speedy collapse is that all of the culture it produced was deeply bad and annoying.
Yes.
And it pissed everyone off. But it seems like now that we're like in the anti-woke backlash, like being sort of, as you pointed out, like sort of now with like 19-year-olds, like fucking groypers with their hands on the actual levers of power, they seem to have like forgotten the part where you actually have to create culture of any kind, let alone culture that annoys or offends people.
Yeah.
But save for, and then like the other example I'm going to use here, save for mods in strategy-based map games. And then also in, I don't know, like the incel nihilism of this like new Clockwork Orange style slang and dialogue that I see everywhere now about like Mega Chad Andropic has just landed in Arizona to challenge ASU frat leader to Jester Gooning Mog off. And it's just like, I don't know, like, first of all, like share with us, like, what are paradox games and like, how did they like become to like speak to and become like kind of a cultural outlet for like the new fascist right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like I have played paradox games. Like I think with most people have a similar story to me. I got into them by just like when I was like 13 years old. I just went on like my computer and I typed in country game where you play as country, and that led me. Yeah, I did, and it led me to Europa Universalis 3, and I played that, and I got into all of their games, and it was a very interesting thing because, like, with their company, they have this kind of pretentious view of themselves as like, oh, we're not for like casual gamers. Like they're like CFO. Like I had a quote in the article where he like insulted Call of Duty like for being for like casual gamers, which like kind of like shows their mentality. So they were really, and it was interesting because like strategy games have always been around like since like the 90s. Civilization has always been like a huge thing.
I played Civilization 2 as a kid. Like that was the game that I was into.
Yeah, and I think you described them like earlier on as turn-based strategy games. These aren't turn-based strategy games actually. The turn-based strategy games are created in the turn-based region of France. These are real time. Yeah, these are.
I'm sorry, I plead ignorance here.
Yeah, no, these are real time strategy games, and that's what makes them different because they simulate particular. If like Matt was on here, he'd probably know what I'm talking about, nerd ass. But like, and I mean that complimentary. I played these for like 10 years. They simulate like eras of history. So you have like Europa Universalis, which plays from like 1400 to like 1800, and it simulates the early modern period, or Crusader Kings, and it simulates like the medieval era, or Hearts of Iron, which is World War II, and Victoria, which is the Victorian era. And it's like it creates this kind of like sort of like different thing from regular strategy games where it's less of like a test of like strategic skill or strategic gameplay and more just about like there's an element of historical simulation and historical pedagogy to a certain extent with the games, because you're not just like playing like a certain systems of mechanics. You're trying to role play as countries and historical periods and do.
You're trying to like within the mechanics of the game. You're attempting to kind of like rewrite history in novel and interesting ways that appeal to you.
Yeah, it's like what if like there was still Muslim Spain and it like colonized America and you had Muslim Americas. I did that, and I got a message saying that I created a utopia. And that was really cool. Like it's stuff like that, and that's always. And what's interesting about it is that they like when they started like there's this whole complicated corporate history with them that like I like go into in the article. But what's interesting is like around the start of the early 2010s, I consider it to be like a really like the golden age of like innovation and gaming. They would often leave money on the table and attempt to simulate games as granularly and as detailed and as good of a simulation as possible. Like they were publishing games on the basis that like expecting them not to make a profit because they thought they would be like very innovative for the genre. So there's this sort of like perspective that and it's very interesting just how this happens to work. The more like they end up at simulating stuff in greater detail, the more it kind of fits with like a left-wing view of history based around like material conditions and like
and I think
stuff
one of the
like
interesting
that.
things you bring up in the in terms of like why this is so appealing to the new right, or whatever you want to call them, the fascist right, is that like in the game mechanics, it's basically like internal divisions within countries, or like like strife of any kind, or differing political or cultural points of views within countries as a whole don't really exist, and history is seen as these kind of like existential zero-sum conflicts between cultures and religions, and not like, I don't know, like a more material view of history.
Yeah, that was specifically the case only for a particular era of game development. Because with Victoria 2, and to a smaller but similar extent, Crusader Kings 2, you had the countries were divided, like the countries were collections of different entities. In Victoria, your country was a collection of your population. It was a very novel and innovative attempt to simulate every person on Earth during the Victorian era, and every person had their own material satisfaction level and ideology that was based on like their material conditions and their income and their needs and their demands, and that's how they simulated a world economy. In Crusader Kings, the countries were broken down into feudal polities where most of the action, a lot of the action came within the country, where people of similar cultures kind of like feuding and fighting against each other, although there was the element of religious wars that were central to the gameplay that you could get from the name. What happens it happens specifically in the middle 2010s, when they start realizing they can make a lot of money off of these things, that the processing power for the kinds of games they want to create isn't really there. Victoria 2 was a really big, buggy mess that kind of failed at what he was trying to do. But so they kind of move in the direction of really simplifying and abstracting things. And that really takes its like biggest, like the biggest leap in that direction is in Europa Universalis 4, where at the start of the game and up until like the very late end of the development cycle, like internal divisions within countries aren't really a thing. Every country has a set of like rigidly defined, immovable cultural characteristics. Those are the really only differences between different like tags or countries that you play as. And the World War II game, which is by far their most popular game, hugely, hugely influential, takes that to an even greater extreme, where there is like politics there. Like there are 3 levels of political divisions in any given country. It's communist, capitalist, fascist, and non-aligned. There's not even an effort to simulate like domestic internal politics. There's not really an economy that's represented outside of production you have for like military capacity. Like any money that you spend on what's called civilian goods is basically wasted. Like you only do better in the game the more you can transition to a full-on war economy and make more tanks that they give you elaborate tools to design. And these are like the kinds of things that, like, this is what people my age, all of the Trump administration officials who are like still like they're like serving in the White House as like a dual enrollment program at their high school. Like that's that's what they. This is what
you're getting class credit for running the FDA.
You get college credits if you run like Medicare. It's like a pretty nice deal. You can graduate a semester early. It's pretty sick. But that's what these people were raised on. And I say this at the outset of the article. I have played these games. Like, it's just like, I've always enjoyed them. And there is a huge left-wing community in these games. That's always been the case. You'd expect it, given that like the primary market are like younger political extremists. And if you're a left-wing person, and I would say in my case, I was able to fully enjoy Europa Universalis 4, even though recognizing it presented a fundamentally conservative view of the world. I was able to suspend my disbelief and like recognize it was an abstraction and enjoy it for what it was. I consider it to be great right-wing art, like Shark Tank or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like that kind of thing you can enjoy while recognizing that it's not like a perfect political representation. Right-wingers don't really get this. They really start looking at these games like as real representations of real history as it actually happened. And it creates this kind of worldview among younger right-wingers when they previously would have been kind of like indoctrinated by their local church or by like free market college groups. I would say like TPUSA in its early years was an example of that. They take like this very literally militaristic perspective. Their understanding of history is shaped around the idea of immutable cultures, zero-sum wars, just like conflict is the main thing that every state kind of leads to. And
well, this is how you get the subset of like, I was a history major. Obviously, like that was always my best subject, and I'm something like a nerd and a political sicko. So like that's naturally where you gravitate to. The subset of people who are interested in young men who are interested in history is young men who are into military history.
Yes,
and that is just that is the easy pass lane to becoming a Nazi.
Yeah,
and that's how you get things like, I don't know, wasn't that like that?
Worst
the Roman helmet guy account on Twitter who's like, the Roman Empire fell because of welfare, and it's just like what?
Yeah, and he's like,
or it fell because of mass immigration. Like, what? No, it fell, but it took 800 years for that to happen. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
But like with him, that guy's like 40 years old or something. I don't know how old he is. Like he looks like a person of the millennial persuasion, is what I'll say. To be that kind of guy, that took a lot of fucking effort. You had to like read books. You had to like read slop shit. You had to like kind of not be interested in history in a way that life revolved around it, but not actually a history major that would learn about it in a meaningful way. Like those guys always existed, but like you had to like really dedicate yourself to being a Roman helmet guy. Paradox Games made anybody like under the age of like 20 for like 10 years able to be a Roman helmet guy. Like they get this understanding of history. And I would say part of it is that you actually can learn a decent bit of history from these games by playing them, just like basic facts and figures about what country was where and what religion came up at what time. It's not like they're totally useless slop. You can learn things.
The problem is that like they think it's a blueprint for how like that's predictive of the future, that like charts some course for like the present day in a way that is still a video game.
Yeah, and it gets to these people way ahead of something like TPUSA would, and an increasingly secular world is getting to them in the way that churches aren't, like, or like religion, traditional conservatism in that way isn't. And you can start seeing as early like as around like 2019, like there are huge flashpoints between the kinds of young right wingers who were raised on this stuff and someone like Charlie Kirk, who was much more of a traditional.
He was a church kid. He was a stoop kid. He wasn't in the streets.
But no, Charlie Kirk actually, like the thing with him that I find fascinating, he didn't really get into the religion stuff until after like he was harassed by Nick Fuentes and like all of his goons. He actually, I found an interview of him when I was researching this because it was part of the article. He said, like, I don't know, it was to like that gay conservative guy. You guys certainly know the name.
Which one?
What's his face? The guy who used to be like a comedian and like he like said like.
You just described probably 300 people.
I know. He was like big like 10 years ago. He has like a beard. Fuck. Oh, they all have beards. Damn it.
Steven Crowder?
No. But he was talking to one of those types, and he explicitly said, I don't view myself as a religious right person. I think that the religious right alienated a lot of young people by being too like demanding. And I found his like RNC speech, like where his RNC speech in 2016, he talked about how Republicans were actually the diverse party and that the Democrats only ran like crusty-ass white people during their primaries. Yeah. So like he like kind of was like trying to be like this socially moderate, like physically conservative type thing. And that does not jive at all with a lot of these younger kids, like these actual college kids at these campuses he's trying to go to. And like, so Nick Fuentes gets into some fucking feud with him over some dumb bullshit about like Michelle Mankin or something. Michelle Manchin, like whatever the fuck her name is.
Michelle Malkin.
Yeah, Michelle Manchin, like that lady. And he like said, he like just kind of very self-aggrandizing. He said, I'm starting the first Groyper War. It wasn't called the first Groyper War at the time. It was called the Great War. It was only called the first Groyper War after the second Groyper War. But I think that, like he just tries to command a personal army to like harass like Charlie Kirk like on every college campus. And the thing is that like this generation of college kids are willing to do that. Like there are a lot of like weird shut-ins. They totally dominate the TPUSA debates. That like I think at like UCLA, where like you'd expect a lot of like Latino young Republicans to be to a certain extent. Like in California, he has an event with Trump Jr. and it has to be canceled early because the crowd is so angry and rowdy towards him. And I think that is like really an early sign of like kind of the youth level that there was something going on in like their kind of historical pedagogy and like their internal political culture that made them vastly different from like the usual kind of like Goldwater teens that we used to be used to of being the only representation of like young right wingers. Like the Onion article about like the right wing having a lock on young people who look like old men. Like that used to be the only demographic.
Yeah.
But like these Paradox games that really oriented themselves in this way because it, like I would say really because these weren't right wing developers. These were all like liberals, like in like Sweden. I think a socialist magazine in Sweden reached out to me. They said that they work in like one of the most typically bougie like kind of like parts of Stockholm. I remember very vividly, like 2015, they like published some like Women of History DLC that everybody hated, and they responded to it by making it. Yeah, they did. They responded to it by making it. It was so the only DLC you couldn't turn off. Like they were like these are like kind of woke-ish type people, and they just kind of designed their games around like certain like technical limitations of the time. But it ended up really giving this like a generation of like young history obsessed men this very like kind of, I would say, fascistic view of the world that's starting to bleed out in like how they approach everything. Because the aesthetics of like the fucking like all the fash wave edits and all the stuff they post online, a lot of that comes from like Hearts of Iron 4 modding culture. Like that's where a lot of it originates. And that's all there is to this. Like there isn't some like greater fucking larger philosophical like grand scheme going on. This is just like a bunch of kids who like got into this instead of like fucking playing those like hentai porn games all day. And like there's nothing.
The Mike Johnson porn monitoring app.
Yeah,
you do a game with your dad.
Yeah, exactly. There's no there is what like I was really trying to get across with this, because their mods fucking suck. They have made mods. Their mods suck ass.
Well, what do the mods do? Like, do they let you like? I mean, I assume it's just so that like Hitler can win World War II or the Confederacy wins the Civil War. Like, but can't you do that in the base game already?
Yeah. Well, what the mods do, like in Hearts of Iron, where like the really biggest ones are, is that like the biggest mods, the real big brand name ones, they totally convert the starting situation into something totally new. So like the base game, it starts in 1936. It has a world map of that. If you made it like the really famous one, there's a mod where Germany wins World War II. That one starts you in 1962 with a world map that's changed as a result of Germany. It puts you in a new setting with totally new content, and you play in that new world. And like, so it's like they're basically creating their own games using the game engine. So like you have people, and I would say myself included, who never played base game Hearts of Iron 4, but have actually spent like a lot of time playing these worlds that have been created by modders. And the right wingers have took like it historically, because for some reason all the actually smart and like capable people always happen to be left leaning. All the mods were run by left wingers, and right wingers complained about it constantly, but they couldn't create their own fucking like they couldn't create their own mods because they sucked at it and they couldn't manage it.
That surprises me.
Yeah, it's shocking. I was really but they created their own mod like a year or so ago that's set like in a world, like it's set in 2024, of course, because they don't have any like fucking like framework outside of what is like immediately in front of them. And it's a world where COVID is really bad, and like a lot more people die of COVID than usual. This causes political instability, and the U.S., of course, because like this is the only way to make the U.S. interesting in their mind, falls into a second civil war. And there's all these wacky ideologies that you can play as. Like you can play as communists in California. They're led by, like, I would say, like friend of your show, Mike Preisner. He's the leader of that faction. But it just so happens that all of the content that they actually provide are for obscure Nazi sects. They have like half a dozen fully realized fucking paths for this. And it's boring as shit. It sucks. Like it's bad gameplay. It's bad writing. They plagiarize shit constantly. And it's just like, that was something that made me realize like there's nothing going on here. Like they have a dark Brandon path. They have a path where fucking they have a path where Gunther Feelinger can take over the EU and invade Russia. It's just
come on.
It sucks.
I guess like this is a segue into the last thing I want to talk about today, which is like in terms of a culture in which there really just there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just empty. I guess we have to talk about Clavvicular and the ongoing Mog War. And like, I don't even really know where to begin with this because it's so like, there's nothing to put your arms around. Like, I've compared it to Clockwork Orange. There's also something like distinctly medieval about it, where it's like the biggest peasant from your region of Burgundy, like wanders over to the next village and just like stares at another large man. Chris has described it as sort of like cryptid sightings, but just like there's the language of the gooning and the maxing and the mogging and all this shit. Like there's a certain narcotic effect where like last weekend when all this shit was like, it's just like in the span of about a week, like I just see like all these accounts that like just are like aggregate what's going on Kick streaming, and they're all bizarre. It's just like they're like it's other language like the Orlando Asian Mogger like is bequeathed by
it's an Elden Ring character.
Like, it's just like the mogger. There's just sort of like you're knighting another mogger or something. And like for about a weekend, Catherine and I tried talking to each other in that sort of style, and it was fun. But I really I had to stop myself from doing it because I was like, nope, this is evil. I'm not going to be seduced by it. But
they're letting me join the East Asian co-mogger sphere.
Yeah.
and like the other sort of linguistic innovation, it's very rare that the right wing is able to incept slang or a kind of culture into the broader mainstream, and this would be an example of them successfully doing it, is the way in which people now say, instead of saying I'm stressed out or I have anxiety or something, they say my cortisol is spiking.
Yeah.
And when I think about Clavvicular as a person and what he represents as this idea that you can kind of biohack yourself through crystal meth and steroids to look like Matt Bomber from White Collar, so that you can not have sex with women, but be thought of as a guy who has sex with women in your competition with other attractive men who you look at as you still hit yourself in the head with a hammer. I just it's sort of like the idea of people don't have thoughts or feelings anymore. They have chemical reactions in their bodies that can be either it can be hacked in some way. You know, and it's this deeply anti-human way of looking at the world and existing in it.
I think it's very interesting because when I was younger, when I was the age of the people who are now watching this stuff, people predicted that that men would in the future get the same body complexes that women got from women's magazines, but they would get
absolutely.
It from the internet. And the first guy who was sort of this mold, there were a lot of ascendant bodybuilders on the internet around this time. There were guys like Rich Piana who were more funny, but represented someone who you didn't exactly want to look like, but you could get some tips
for yourself, Felix.
Yeah, I mean, every woman wants a guy like that. But Rich was always very interesting to me because he was very
there's a humanity to him that made him so interesting, but that's completely devoid.
Specifically that he said, "Oh, I become this big because I can't be a life swimmer. I don't have that type of body, and I would give anything to have that type of body, but I can't. So I just have to do this." But he was still very positive, and I always think of the precursor to all this was Ziz. People who have been around for a while will recognize that name, but he was an Australian bodybuilder, and again, his main thing was his catchphrase was "We're all going to make it," and he was much more. He didn't look as freakish as Rich Piana or Craig Goliath, and he was a very aspirational figure for a lot of people. He loved partying, doing Molly. And I think it's so interesting that it went from, Ziz's "we're all going to make it" to this broad cultural pessimism. And Ziz was, as optimistic as he was, he did represent the swing in this of men going from fantasizing about stupid shit stopping school shootings or disarming a bank robber with something in a Jet Li movie to fantasizing about being perceived and desired in the same way that sexually trafficked traditionally female models were.
Yeah.
That I think is incredibly interesting in how it coincides with a broader pessimism among young people. That there's no future, there's no heroism, there's no point in fantasizing about stopping a mass shooting. And the only thing you can achieve is other people thinking that you've achieved perfection.
Not only that, there's also, as Clavvicular himself has said multiple times, most recently on the Adam Friedland show, there's also absolutely no point in getting laid with a beautiful woman because, in his words, it's a waste of my time.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that. Why have sex? You're just going to revert to a state of not having sex when you're done. It's like you didn't do it. The Mormons are the only people who try to solve this with soaking, but eventually you have to go to the bank or something.
I guess there is something. I mean, against my better judgment, there is something funny to me about his nihilism. Josh, you wrote about his appearance on his interview with Michael Knowles that I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
because when he said JD Vance is fat and Gavin Newsom mogs. But there's a line from that interview. I forget what the context is. Maybe you can remember. But he says to Michael Knowles at one point, "I don't care. It's just another person to mog." And for some reason,
he's a
that phrase has just been stuck in my head. Yeah,
he's from the old West.
Let me tell you, buddy, There's a faster gun coming over yonder when the morning comes.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and it's just like, like there's always someone out there that's going to outmog you. There's always someone that has a square jaw. And I've said this before about like the manosphere, and this is really like, I think, a novel and strange mutation of the manosphere, but it is all under like a larger philosophy and rubric of ensconcing young men in a totally hopeless worldview.
Yeah.
And this idea that there is no way out of like genetic destiny, save for leg lengthening surgery, hitting your fucking face with a hammer, which heretofore was something you would see in Looney Tunes cartoons to illustrate the mental instability of the person.
Well, okay. When did they hit themselves in the head with a hammer? When they saw a hot woman.
Exactly.
They were like, "Oh, I forgot to do this earlier."
Maybe if I get some
harder hits in now. The microfractures will make my jaw better.
Yeah, it's an ancestral. I will say the thing with like what Phil's talking about the Zen, I think that's further proof, and sadly, unfortunately, that millennials are the only ensouled generation out there.
Facts. Facts.
I have like the thing in my brain, like the chip they put in your brain if you were born after 9/11, where I watch all these I see all these headlines and I somehow like understand it like instinctively, and I find it very compelling. Like, I want to know more about the ASU frat leader. I was very compelled by hearing that he wasn't actually in a frat. Like, this is character development. This is like Breaking Bad.
Who's the South African guy? He's like Androgic or something.
He's
Androgic has landed and is looking for ASU frat leader. It's like the Terminator. Like, and it's just like they're like they just need to like they're streaming all the time, and they're just like they wait until they walk into the physical proximity of another mogger, and then they mog each other.
You know how millennials mogged each other? By having the most maroon denim. By having the biggest Django hat.
By having
and it was friendly competition.
The stupidest dogs.
But
we're like
Felix, to your point about like, about how this is all just like giving men the same complexes about their appearance that the fashion industry has done to women. And like when I see these guys hitting themselves in the chin with claw hammers, to paraphrase Kevin Durant, what are we doing to our beautiful kings?
Yeah.
Like, this is terrible. This is terrible. And then like, I don't know, like I can't confirm this, but the fact that like there are intimations that Peter Thiel has funded Clavvicular, I was like,
this is one investment.
No, he hasn't. He invited Clavvicular to a party, and Clavvicular seemed to very wisely turn him down.
Okay.
I think that he, despite his pessimism, wants to live another 10 years.
Yeah.
Well,
he doesn't want to find himself tumbling off of a skyscraper. The only thing I saw was that this guy who just dubbed himself as P gifted Clavvicular a lot of money.
Okay.
But there are freaks like that in every fucking Twitch chat.
I guess I was so ready to believe that because I think he embodies and represents Peter Thiel's view of humanity and the world so perfectly.
Yeah. He doesn't need to pay him.
Someone I forget who made this joke, but like it would make sense if Peter Thiel invested in Clavvicular and this whole sort of bone smashing aesthetic, because that way, when a sort of a beautiful young rough trade is scraped off the pavement at the bottom of a large condo in Miami, and the medical examiner says that there's evidence that they've been hit in the face with a hammer prior to being thrown out of a window. There's a plausible explanation for why that happened.
Ooh,
this is such a criminal intent episode. But I would love to see Goran interrogate Peter Thiel and Clavvicular, really. I think Clavvicular would get the better of him.
I think my favorite thing about Clavvicular was that moment on like his interview with Adam when he said he didn't know who Zoran was.
Yeah.
That was
He's like, I could give a fuck. Yeah.
He didn't believe him. He sounded like DMX when they asked him about
when
Obama.
he was talking about Obama. Yeah.
His name is fucking Barack. His mom named him. There ain't no fucking Barack. He was right. That is a weird I think, just to be like the voice of Gen Z for a moment, I think that people kind of take what he does, like he has said before that like he makes up new slang to get engagement, because there is kind of like I think he is cognizant that people do see him as kind of like a zoo animal, and that like the more he kind of plays into the idea that he's like super crazy and weird, the more interested they'll be. I think that was absolutely the case of what happened with the Knowles interview, which I was shocked that everybody really took it as seriously as they did, because he was clearly fucking with him.
Yeah, he was just fucking with him. That's why I thought it was really funny.
Like he was joking. Like he was doing a self-conscious parody of his own worldview. And then fucking like Michael Knowles
bet it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. He was like, do you like Trump? Do you support Trump? Do you support our fucking agenda? Do you support the project, the vision? It's like, come on, man. I felt so bad for him because Clavvicular obviously didn't want to like back down, but he was like forced like into this argument where he was like, yeah, I'm actually an accelerationist. I don't want JD Vance to be like elected because I want things to get worse. So we elect a real right winger. And like this plays into a lot of like the right's mythology that they're only losing like youth support because like all the Hearts of Iron forward playing Zoomers are disillusioned that they haven't caused the day of the rope yet. So he like,
man.
Yeah. So like
all the kids I'm not allowed to talk to anymore are so right wing.
Yeah. That's a huge
parents have orders of protection against me.
That's a huge fucking thing. Like you always see that on right wing Twitter. Like, yo, those teenagers I saw in like at the gym today.
Oh, the guy who was like, I overheard these kids in a locker room talking, and you wouldn't believe how based they are.
Yeah, they're talking.
He said, I'm Lindsey Graham compared to these kids I'm overhearing in a men's locker room.
These kids got me like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I forgot the account who was doing it, but it was like an account that was more or less openly a Nazi, and they were like, "Oh, these teenagers I'm eavesdropping on, you wouldn't believe how freaking based they are."
God,
awesome.
That could have gone so fucking crazy on 2017 left Twitter. You like,
yeah.
Dude, that's why it's so funny because they like we've talked about it a billion times how they're living through their long 2017.
Yeah,
this is the same. This was a left slop style post where it's like. I just substituted a middle school class and they were all talking about the means of production.
Yeah. No, the kids are all
I talked to the kids at the lemonade stand about how there's no such thing as unskilled labor.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe they wanted to kill their parents, who they called their landlords.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's they are I'd say a 5-year long 2017 right now.
Yeah.
I'm excited for their 2019.
Who's going to be their Hannah Gadsby?
Well, we have talked about how there's going to be a conservative Nanette where like a guy goes, I don't want to do comedy anymore because like my wife's divorcing me and I have to kill our family so we can make it to heaven. But
the one step I think that they've got in there, this is the thing that has driven me fucking mad, is like the veneration of Sky King. Like,
we just talked about, yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
I like how when you look up Richard Russell, he's the first person who shows up.
Oh wait, yeah, it is weird that he has the same name as LBJ's Peter Thiel.
Yeah, and he has better SEO than him, so like he blocked all those bills for nothing. But yeah, there were like members of Congress posting about like Fly High Sky King. Like, this is a guy who abandoned his family, and like I would say the biggest fucking crime, he fucking defrauded Alaska Airlines. He did disservice to the stakeholders of that company. That's not how a Western man is supposed to live.
The Bush administration would like subject the next 7 generations of this man's family to eternal servitude.
Yeah,
to the Alaska Airlines Corporation.
Yeah, because that's when we were a real country. That's when we had a real right that cared about.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like venerating him, that is really not one step away from venerating family annihilators. So. Like that could be the conservative Nanette. I think somebody like last night compared their Super Bowl halftime show to like as a form of right wing Nanette. That's just something they're forced to like for political reasons.
Right, like, and that's how you knew that woke was breathing its last breath when there was like this unspoken assumption that we all have to like Nanette and be like, this is good. Yeah. This is good, actually. Like, and I'm glad comedy is like this now.
Do you remember when? Who's that disgusting Seth Mandel when he was like, my fellow conservatives, I'm imploring you to watch Nanette. Oh, what was that about?
That's awesome. That's how like Ronald Reagan was moving like half the time whenever the economy was too bad. He would have like hired Nanette to like be like Secretary of Education as like a compromise. And you know what?
Well, yeah, he won 49 he got serious about nuclear arms control after he watched that fucking TV movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? They did compromise like that, and they won 49 states. So maybe they should have listened to Seth Mandel. So maybe there's something there.
Oh man, if I would have voted for Trump, if they were like, I would give him the money that you give him on the expectation that you're going to be pardoned, but not because I'm seeking a pardon or seeking one for anyone in my family, just to like secure a personal guarantee from Roger Stone that he will watch Nanette and record his response.
Yeah. What if he loves it?
That I could see him doing, like, I could see him getting weirdly like weepy about it.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he would say like, she's a tough lady. She had a hard life.
She's a tough lady. This is a tough cookie. That's one tough son of a bitch.
And also, Pablo Picasso, he was problematic because he opposed fascism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of his awful painting Guernica, which, was a libel against the wonderful.
Yeah. I think for an optimistic note, before we all get bombed in nuclear hellfire, I think that the conservative Nanette is yet to come, and we'll know it when it happens.
Well, yeah, we do have conservative Lizzo in Jelly Roll, but that's another matter entirely.
You're also putting him in movies.
And Tulsa King, much to my chagrin.
Ugh.